And here we are on the Football Jones, joined by Mike Tannenbaum. Really excited to have you on here. Now, you guys have seen him, obviously, ESPN insider. He's a man who wears a lot of hats. He is the founder of the 33rd Team, which is the NFL think tank. A lot of analysis and things like that, taking you inside. He's also on the board of directors of X2 Performance. He's also an adjunct professor. So the fact that you had time to talk to us, I am very, very thankful for you. Mike, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Mike. How are you? Great to be with you.
I'm doing well. This has been a really interesting NFL offseason. So I wanted to get your perspective on what you've thought about what some of these teams have done and who's had the best offseason that kind of stands out to you, that you look at what they've done. And I know you have a pulse on a lot of different teams, but who stands out that's had an impressive offseason to you?
Like for me, it may be a little bit under the radar, but I like what the Saints did specifically at the quarterback position. It's really hard to win for today and develop for tomorrow. And I think a year ago when they signed Jameis Winston, knowing that Drew Brees was obviously close to the end and get him a year in the system, Mike, I thought that was really smart. And I think he's, certainly with everything going on between Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson and, kind of under the radar, which I'm sure where he wants to be. But, going into the season, I think it's so intriguing because this is a team that's been competing for championships for so long. They had an iconic quarterback, and I'm fascinated to see how well Jameis does this year.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. I mean, he's a guy that we know he can light it up and make all the plays you need, but he also can keep the other team in the game. But working with Sean Payton and sitting under Drew Brees for a year, how do you think that might pay off for his development?
Well, it's little things like I worked for a number of years with Brian Schottenheimer, who's now the coordinator in Jacksonville. He had a great line. He's like, for quarterbacks, every drive should end in a kick, meaning extra point, field goal, or punt. And I know that's a very simple thing to say, but if Jameis Winston just cut his turnovers in half, they may have a really good quarterback for a number of years. And you look at some of these recent trades, like, for example, like what San Francisco gave up to go get Trey Lance, a massive amount of draft capital, or how bad Jacksonville was, or the Jets were to get those players like Zach Wilson or, Trevor Lawrence. Here was a guy that was the first pick in the draft not that long ago, Mike, who's still young, been productive. I think from a risk-reward standpoint, it was a fascinating signing. And you're right, he did keep both teams in the game. But, going to grad school for a year with Sean Payton and Drew Brees, I give Jameis Winston, too, a lot of credit to have the humility to do that, where, you were a frontline guy, you were the number one pick overall. I think that says a lot about his mindset and his maturity.
On the flip side, whose offseason has concerned you the most?
Well, that's a good question. I would say like Dallas, just from a standpoint, I think they're going to be a lot better on defense, just with having Dan Quinn. I'm a big believer in Dan. I think the Zeke Elliott contract is starting to catch up with them. They lost Byron Jones, who's a good corner, a year ago, and they just don't have the resources to go ahead and acquire frontline blue chip difference makers on defense. And when you pay a guy like Zeke before they had to, it starts catching up with you. I like who they drafted, though. I think Parsons will be good. Their second round pick, a corner out of Kentucky, I think he's going to be really good. So there's some things I like, but I think foundationally, the way they've built their team, they have so many resources in the skill players. It's just going to leave them short on the defensive side of the ball. But with that said, I think Dan Quinn will make them better. But when you look at on paper defensively, they have a championship offense, but it's hard to say that about them defensively.
And if you're giving up so many points in yard, that just puts so much pressure on your quarterback on that offense. One team that I'm curious about, the Bucs, they brought back everybody from that Super Bowl team. And I know that every year is different, but how challenging is that as a GM to make that happen, to bring back all of those starters?
Really hard. And Mike Greenberg, their salary cap guy, Jason Light, they deserve a ton of credit. Just from a standpoint of when you think about guys like Levante David, all of them. We could just write down the line, but to bring back that whole core and nucleus, a guy like Chris Godwin, I think, his best days are ahead of him. I think they deserve a ton of credit. And I think they have a chance to be better, just given the weird offseason last year. I think having that nucleus together this year will, again, I think make them even better.
Now they're a team that they haven't had a lot of experience with, success and having the bullseye on them. How do you think that they'll handle that? Now they have all these expectations.
I think Tom Brady will make sure that they only answer it, one way very appropriately. If it was another team, Mike, I wouldn't be saying that. But, Tom's one of those guys that, he probably woke up Monday after the Super Bowl saying that they were probably behind for next year. So the way he's hardwired, I don't think they'll let complacency slip in at all.
Gotcha. When you look at the teams around the league, are there any ones that you have real questions? I mean, I know we don't know what's going to happen with Green Bay. We don't know what's going to happen with Deshaun Watson, but are there other teams that you have big questions about that still have to be resolved between now and training camp?
Yeah, I think another big headline is going to be these extensions. So Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Baker Mayfield, that sort of class of 2018, who gets extended and who doesn't, Mike. I would certainly sign Lamar. I would have some concerns about his durability. I think he's a high character player. I think he'll continue to get better with downfield accuracy, which is important, but he's been a league MVP. He's dynamic. I don't love his frame just in terms of sustainability, but I love the player and I love his character. I would definitely sign Josh Allen, although he was hurt at Wyoming. Some concerns about his durability. He's a contact player. He does not make people miss. And he's a big frame guy. He's a big target. So I would sign him, but that would be a concern. And I would not sign Baker Mayfield. I just think when you're slow and short, it's hard to have sustainability. And Kevin Stefanski's had success with other quarterbacks in his career, like Kirk Cousins, Case Keenum. So if I'm Cleveland, I'm taking that money and I'm spending it on other players that can impact the team. And knowing that I have a quarterback that played well, but his skill set, to me, there's nothing about him that's dynamic.
Gotcha. So you have him on that 5th-year option. You kind of just let it see what happens this year and then revisit it in the offseason.
Yeah, I think he plays this year, which is year 4. He plays next year, which is year 5. Mm-hmm. And if he plays well, I tag him. So I have him for 3 more years. So what's the rush?
Yeah. So, okay, I understand now that there's no need to kind of just do something prematurely like that. I know there's also a challenge as a GM to know how you bank on continuity and winning now, but also keeping an eye on the future. How do you juggle that balance that you have to have?
I'll give you a great example. Kyle Trask getting drafted by Tampa. If we're talking in 2 years, Mike, we may be saying hey, that young ascending quarterback that Tampa has, that's what you need to do. It's hard. It's really hard. I've had some success and some misfits on that. Clearly, in Miami, we had a great quarterback in Ryan Tannehill who has continued to show his greatness, but not a lot behind him. And that's really, you need to procure as many quarterbacks as you possibly can. You go back to Seattle, they had guys like Tavares Jackson and Matt Flynn, and they drafted this short quarterback out of Wisconsin in the 3rd round who couldn't start at NC State, and a Hall of Fame career later, there's Russell Wilson. So you have to constantly look for the premium positions to keep adding talent to there, and until you can't have enough.
Now, a team like Washington, they passed on adding a rookie quarterback, and they went with Ryan Fitzpatrick, and they've got Heineke. Are they in kind of a precarious situation, or is that smart to just set the table and then get your young quarterback later?
I think Heineke showed really some intriguing flashes to me. So I think what they did, you want to win for today and develop for tomorrow. I think what they did was smart. I think they hedged with Heineke, with Fitzpatrick, and let's see what they have. I mean, their front 7 is going to be so much fun to watch. Hard to say that Chase Young is not one of the 5 best players in our sport.
Okay. Wow. Now, can you kind of, I get questions a lot from college kids and young guys, and sometimes NFL players who are retiring, who ask me, man, how do I get an NFL job? How do I break into a front office? Can you take us through your journey and how you went about becoming an NFL general manager? Was that your goal from the outset? I mean, how did you get there?
Yeah, a lot of luck. So I went to UMass undergrad and then Tulane Law School. And I started off as an unpaid intern. And the reason I was so lucky, Mike, was for 75 years, basically, if you were a player and the team wanted to keep you, they had your rights. And then there was litigation in going back a number of years, like 82, 87, 93, there was basically a settlement where the players got free agency, the others got cost certainty in the form of a salary cap. And basically, I was in the right place at the right time. So I was in law school. I interned for the Saints, and I put a book together of how I build a team. I sent it out to 60 people. There was 30 teams, and I got 59 rejection letters, which I still have. One of the ways I motivate myself every day. And Coach Belichick hired me in Cleveland. I went out there and researched contracts, drove people to the airport. And then my big break came. The 95 Browns became the Ravens. Coach Belichick spent a year with Coach Parcells in New England. And then 97, they went from New England to the Jets. I got hired initially to manage the salary cap and was able to get more responsibilities and became the GM of the Jets, a number of years later.
But now, did you go to college knowing you wanted a career in football? You went to law school, but or was that something you decided later on?
Yeah, so I went to University of Massachusetts. They have a great sport management program. Okay. And when I graduated, I worked for the Pittsfield Mets, which was a short season single A baseball team. And I loved it. And I just believe I can choose a job you love. You never work a day in your life. And growing up in the Boston area, the GM of the Boston Celtics was a guy named Red Auerbach. And he was a guy that really I was just fascinated by. And Boston Globe was a newspaper that you kind of pulled up, like the USA Today, you pulled apart, the different sections. And every morning having breakfast with my mother, I just said, hey, give me the sports section. And she always said to me, at some point you're going to have to get a real job and you're going to need to know more than about sports. And I was able to prove her wrong on that.
Exactly. And my dad was the same way. He was an accountant. He was like, no, you can't be a sports writer, not a real job. Go be get
there you go.
Business. But,
good for you.
Yeah. So what would your advice be to a kid who's, coming out of high school, going into college, wants to be, what would the best track be? Would it be sports management?
Yeah. So just a couple of very fundamental precepts. So one is you're not looking for a job, you're trying to build a career. So it's a mindset, always be networking, always try to meet people. That goes, for me, it's skills that you need for 50, 60 years. It's really about creating value. What's the pain point of the person you want to work for and how can you solve it? So it could be sport management, it could be accounting, it could be understanding intellectual property laws of China, working for a sports agency that's trying to, garner international attention for their client. It could be name, image, and likeness. It could be the transfer portal expert. There's a number of ways to create value. And then there's 4 other things I always say, be the first one in, the last to leave, the answer is yes, and the answer is yes with a smile. And the last one really is about exceeding the expectations of what was asked of you, because when you exceed expectations, you create real and sustainable value.
So I imagine your college students, that's the talk, the kind of the nut graph of what you tell them for their journey.
100%, and just, you really got to work hard. When you get an opportunity, when Coach Parcells gave my opportunity at the Jets, I worked my tail off. That's easier said than done, but he was there at 5:30. I was there at 5:30. That's every day. And, for me, I just kind of delayed any sort of personal, there was nothing else in my life. That's what I was doing. So it was sort of a single-minded focus. And I was just I have this incredible opportunity and I'm not going to be outworked.
And don't be afraid to do the dirty work. I mean, driving people to the airport isn't very much fun, or picking them up. And, that's not like picking players and everything like that, but it lays the groundwork.
100%. And when you meet expectations, you get more responsibility.
Gotcha. Now, for you, now that, you have a lot of different hats you wear, but what's the challenge of being an ESPN insider, keeping abreast of all 32 teams, teaching college, serving on the board for, X2 and, the 33rd team, starting that? How do you juggle all that?
I like staying busy. I'm not, I live in South Florida and I like to golf, but I'm not dead yet. I just, ambition is a blessing and a curse. I don't know how else to say it. I want to get better. Like, I want to impact the world. I want to help people get to where they want to go. And I want to, do it with people that make me smile, make me smarter. And I got a lot of wood to chop. So like, I get up every day, like the best is yet to come. And, like we got a lot to get done, and let's get after it.
How did you come about the idea of starting the 33rd team?
So, big passion of mine is helping others to get to where they want to go. When I was fortunate to become the general manager of the Jets, I started a family scholarship where we give living wages to people that get an opportunity to work in sports but can't afford to work for free. So we encourage them to take those opportunities, and then we give them money to pay their bills so they don't have to go wait tables. So that was like the foundation, and that started probably like back in '06. And then when I got very fortunate to get hired by ESPN, I knew I needed a lot of help. So I started with a couple of students. They did great work for me. And from there, we just found like there's this really weird void in the marketplace, which is there's students that would give their left arm or leg to get involved with sports. And then you have professionals that are between opportunities. So like take someone like Dan Quinn. Dan was the head coach of the Falcons. He then gets let go. He spends 6 months with us. He becomes very, very close with a couple of our grad students. They do some really interesting research projects together, make Stan a better coach. And now these grad students have incredible experience. And then hopefully that helps them with placement, and which I'm really proud of. We've placed about a half a dozen students in the NFL over the last couple of months. And then what we realized, Mike, is that we have really interesting content. So we started a free newsletter. All our content's completely free. It's at the 33rdteam.com. And, we know that people read it in the industry, and, we just try to kind of share our observations.
What hatched or birthed that desire of yours to kind of help people get to where they want to be? Where did you get that from?
One, my parents gave me everything. My dad was a transit worker, and he gave me everything he had. And Curtis Martin really impacted me. He always talked about to whom much is given, much is expected. And I'll never forget when we signed him to this $36 million contract to get him from the Patriots to the Jets. And his mother comes in from Pittsburgh to celebrate, Rochella Martin. And I said, congratulations. What a great day for you and your family. Are you going to go out in New York City and celebrate tonight? And she's like, no, I run a secondhand clothing store. I got to get back to work. And like, I've never forgotten that. Like, I'm thinking like, my gosh, like her son just signed a $36 million contract, and she runs a secondhand clothing store, and she had to get back to work. And when you're around Curtis Martin for 10 seconds, you realize like what a special human he is, well beyond anything he ever did on the field. And I don't know, I just like those things really inspire me. Like a lot of people believed in me way before they should have. And I have a responsibility to help others because so many people were good to me.
And then how did you get involved with X2 Performance? It's a supplement brand. Kawhi Leonard is kind of the face of you guys, but how'd you get involved with that?
So, when you sit there with, for a team, you get a lot of products and services thrown your way. And through a mutual friend, I actually knew the founder. I gave it to our strength and conditioning staff. I said, hey, check this out. So they took it, and we actually drug tested them for 6 weeks to make sure it was clean and natural and healthy. Because the last thing I'm going to do is, do a favor for somebody and then, have some contaminant, but totally clean, totally safe. And then after games, I saw our players use it, and we have a patent. We actually enhance energy in a healthy and natural way. And the U.S. government agreed with our patent, and we're so privileged to have Kawhi Leonard, who stands for all those sort of attributes. Like he is a self-made, hardworking, selfless person that is obviously a great player, and he uses it on game day and training. And we have a great story to tell and a great product, and it's been a lot of fun, and learned a lot along the way.
So it seems like you're having fun doing a lot of things, all kinds of different things. Do you ever miss being a GM? Would you want to be a GM again, or are you happy where you're at?
Yeah, no, there's definitely parts and days that I miss it. I still have obviously a lot of friends in the league, and you miss those great moments of winning. But I really, I'm very fulfilled doing what I'm doing now, just because I'm learning a lot. I'm involved with the sport, a couple of different ways. And having a seat with ESPN has been great. Like I feel like I'm still in the middle of things and can stay relevant and keep learning. And I like being challenged. So you know, there's a great expression like be where your feet are, and I just try to be the best version of myself every day that I possibly can.
Good deal. Well, in closing, I just want to ask you, if I'm give you three teams right here, if you would fix their situation, how would you do it? If you're the Packers, how would you fix them?
I would go find Aaron Rodgers and just say, like, we're not leaving until we get this solved. Like, I want to talk about your legacy, not this year, but the next 5, 10, 20 years. Like, we're talking about like Aaron Rodgers Boulevard, in Green Bay. Like, you're an all-time great, and we got to fix this. And we haven't been perfect, but we're going to fix this together.
Okay. The Houston Texans.
Mike, that's a simple question, a complicated answer. That's complicated because two things we got to keep in mind. One is there's now a criminal investigation. There could be, victims, and we have to be very sensitive to that. And secondly, we got to keep in mind that regardless of the disposition of the criminal situation, the commissioner has a lower standard to punish a player. So he may not have any sort of criminal liability here, and still may not be eligible to play. So that situation's much more difficult.
The Seattle Seahawks.
Same thing, Russell. Like, you're retiring a Seahawk. We took a chance on you in the third round when nobody else did. You surpassed all of our expectations. You make us better. We want you to be the president of the franchise one day, and we have to get you more help on offense. And we were, maybe too focused on the other side of the ball, but we have a vision for you for being here for a long, long time.
I feel like of all the three, that one might be the one that might be the easiest.
Mike, you just gave me 3 really hard assignments so early in the morning here.
Hey, and you handled it perfectly. I knew you could do it. So I really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate it. No, this has been a lot of fun. Appreciate you having me on.
All right. Thanks so much for the insight. I know everybody's going to gobble up this information. I know there's a lot of kids out there taking notes. So thanks, and you have a great one.
Okay, Mike, thank you so much.
Thanks.